Hello and welcome to TIDL Episode 6, your source for information on the teams and players attending the International this year, whether you're here to discover the wonders of competitive Dota for the first time or an old friend looking to get reacquainted. Today we look at the great inventors in Dota 2, Vici Gaming. Okay, now editor's note before we start off. I do not know how to say the name of this team. It says Vici, but some people say it VC, and their symbol is VG. So before you get on my ass, I have literally no idea how their team name is said. I don't want to know. Get over it. Here we go. Team VC began in one of the most badass ways possible, formed late back in 2012 as a experiment. They took a number of players who had little to no competitive experience, but who had excelled on the leaderboards in Chinese Warcraft 3 Dota, and they gave them the resources and support of a professional team. The original experimentees consisted of CTY, XTT, I am not going to read all these. The experiment was quite a success up until TI3, as the team didn't do too well and they basically disbanded afterwards, leaving only FY and Ferner as the sole surviving and abandoned members. Vici was basically dead, the experiment was basically failed, and the creators expected to never hear from anyone on the squad again. But up in Frankenstein's attic, they were still alive. Something in the Chinese experiment was still ticking. The skeleton crew of Vici decided not to go quietly into that dark good night. Broken but not dead, they set out into the world to create a new terrifying monster of their own design. Recent DK Outcast, Super, and ROTK joined the Forgotten Experiments along with LGD Sylar, who had heard rumors that his team was looking to replace him and decided he would screw him first and quit the team. With this lineup, they achieved their first success at major lands and since their formation. Many wondered what had changed, but the answer was clear. It was anger. Anger stowed in the hearts of the two men who were left behind on the failed experiment. Anger from the betrayal of DK and LGD. This anger exploded onto the battlefield with new, aggressive styles no one had ever seen before, especially by a Chinese team. They created a little experiment of their own, and they called it Death Ball! Okay, we talked about Death Ball before, but it's important for me to note that I was completely wrong about it last time. You see, VG came up with the Death Ball, and they used it quite well leading up to TI4. Newbie, who had played against them and observed the Death Ball, began to use it as their secret strategy as well, but certainly not as much as VG, who pioneered the Death Ball strat to begin with. Suffice to say, both teams that used the strategy plowed through all the competition at TI4, and they were soon at each other's necks at the TI4 finals. But where VG had created the Death Ball, Newbie had figured out how to defend against it by constantly observing their rivals. In the end of TI4, Newbie did pull out the victory against VG, but VG accomplished everything that they wanted to do. They destroyed Team DK 10-1 in an 18-minute game where DK barely had any time to load before VG were ready to break into their base. They absolutely plowed through all competition and showed their worth in a scene that thought them to be dead. They might have not won TI4, but they certainly won a victory of their own. And after TI4, the world took notice. Every team in China wanted to get their hands on the support prodigy FY and the rest of VG's team. Sylar decided to go back to LGD after beating the crap out of him at TI4, while ROTK left for retirement. Soon the age of the mix had begun. Never to back away from a unstable experiment, VG picked up Ice and Black, two non-native Chinese members of the team, a very rare thing to do in the Chinese scene. Ice was one of the best players in the world, and Black was one of the best farmers in the world.
I am Black.
And they used both of them to their utmost potential. Possessing the cross-natural appeal of previous teams such as DK, with a bold new strategy post-Death Ball, Vici became the team that FY had envisioned since its inception all that time ago. An aggressive vision that often ran multiple semi-carries and a broad range of heroes with Black as its team anchor.
Now I am in China. No matter where I am, the dream is always in my heart.
Black's farming ability had nearly no equal, and as long as they could protect him, they typically won. But just like Death Ball, the rest of the scene began to catch on to their new crazy tricks. People started to pressure Black, and without room to breathe, the team could only place second at DAC, the equivalent of the Chinese International. It was at that time they had to make a tough choice. How, the reigning TI4 champion of Newbie, a literal living legend, had suddenly become available. Would they kick one of the best farmers in the world to try something different?
Who are you?
Of course they would. This is Vici. They've always been fucking crazy. They decided to part ways with the very farm-heavy Black and decided to bring on Hal with his hyper-aggressiveness and on-the-fly carry skills. Better synergy, no language barriers, and a brand bold new strategy. These were the things Hal could bring to the team, and this is what Vici hoped to do in the following months. They brought on the man from Newbie who adopted their own style and figured out how to beat it to their own team. Overall, it looked like they were unstoppable. And at first, they were. It seemed like the more aggressive Hao complemented the already aggressive team quite well, and they smashed away through the final few events of 6.83, running strategies that punished the slow Western meta. But with 16.84 coming around and speeding things up again, Vici ran headlong into Team Empire at D2CL, suffering a devastating defeat at the hands of the original gangsters of Hyper Push, the Russians. Followed by a third place win at the Summit 3, it would appear that the Western scene had figured them out yet again. And since then, Vici has done everything they can to come up with a new magic formula for victory, even switching drafting leadership from the original member FY to the new blood of Hao. As a result, we haven't seen too much from Vici in a while, with frankly average performances from the I-League, the MDL, and the ESL Frankfurt, and they have started to fall behind behemoths such as Secret and EG. FY has replaced Hao once again as the drafter for TI5, and the world will watch and see if they become the powerhouse experimenters that they once were. But is everything as it seems? You see, Vici has been playing like they never have before. The team has always been known for their high experimental nature and their volatile ideas, yet lately, they've been playing by the book. Almost like they're trying to fool us. As even the often outspoken Ice has told viewers to watch the Western scene instead of VG. Perhaps VG has been quiet and performing averagely because they have figured out the next big thing in Dota 2 yet again and are saving it for the International. Certainly the world would not be surprised to see VG come up with a new strategy that will change the face of Dota pubs for another month until Ice Frog screws them again. Alright, now let's take a look at the mad scientists of Dota 2 up close and personally. Known as General Hao within the Chinese community, Hao is a veteran carry player who has never been one for the Chinese ideals of stable and safe farming play. Instead, together with his partner in crime Mu, he has brought a brand of unpredictable aggression more commonly associated with the Russian scene to all of his teams, and experimenting with hyper-aggressive plays. Hao attended the first TI along with Tai Lu, a team reaching a disappointing 9th to 10th place and was considered to be one of the best China had to offer earlier that year. This incredible loss sparked a fire within Hao, who has been obsessed with winning a TI ever since. After the disillusion of Taifu, Hao and Mu joined Tongfu, reaching 7th place at TI2 and 4th at TI3, at which point he became considered one of the best carry players in China, overtaking the long-standing Burning in the eyes of many. This led IG to want to acquire him, however that team didn't work out as well, ultimately prompting him to reunite with mostly old Tongfu guys in the newly formed New B, the secret super team that would go on to win TI4. Following their win, Hao returned home and watched all of his teammates play RPGs. But Hao was not ready to play RPGs. Hao still had a burning desire that came with him from his TI1 loss. Hao wanted to win an international, and he sure as shit wasn't gonna get rusty playing goddamn RPGs. Hao decided instead to join Team VG and continue with his hyper-aggressive skills while the rest of New B had a little vacation. Now Hao works with VG to finally secure his first place win he's been dreaming of since TI1. Overall, while being the best carry that China has to offer, he is often not thought of too highly by the Chinese scene. They think of him as stupidly aggressive and show most images of him eating walnuts, which apparently represent brains, and Chinese people think that eating walnuts makes you smarter because they look like brains. What? The Chinese also refer to Hao as Lady Hao due to his old look in the olden days. Anyway, one of Hao's most memorable accomplishments was to bring Spectre into the meta over Animage as the go-to late-game carry. In one very critical game, his team was going to pick him AM as normal, and he's told them to pick him Spectre instead, a hardly ever used hero, stating that he would cut off his own hands if he did not win them the game as the Spectre. Of course, he did win, and he is still one of the best Spectres to this very day. That's dedication right there. A young breakout star from the dominant Team DK towards the end of Warcraft 3 Dota, Super has been a long, talented mid all of his Dota 2 career. Playing a wildly impressive Invoker at TI2 along with his Team DK, he ultimately ended up only in 4th place. Super is all about mid experimenting. In 2013, he introduced the strange new solo mid Alchemist, helping Alchemist become a first ban and pick at the TI3 era, all on his lonesome. Despite all of his new meta creations, Team DK seemed to not be impressed and kicked him after TI3. His removal from the team afterwards was not particularly surprising, but it ultimately seemed to work out very well in his favor, as he soon joined the much more successful VG squad and secured a 2nd place win at TI4. He is still, however, quite insane. He performs exceptionally at normal mids, but he refuses to stop trying to find the next big thing. Recently, his experiment created the monster of DAC, where his mid sniper became an unstoppable powerhouse that required bans every single game. If you were wondering who created the sniper dominance of the meta in 6.83, it was him, this motherfucker. fuck you! China's nicknames include Steam Bun, because they think his face looks like the steamed bun. Jesus Christ, why are the Chinese fans such assholes? 26 years old, Fenrir is the old man of Vici Gaming and one of their original captains. His only competitive experience has been part of VG, and a big part of his success has been his enduring friendship with the much younger FY. Fenrir is one of those players who enables the other to become the star, himself taking a more muted role and performing it solidly, but never extravagantly. Quiet as a position for support and typically staying out of the limelight, Fenrir is exceptionally skilled, however. Typically voted as best player on the Chinese forums, VG is famous for yelling out, "Save me, Captain!" in pubs whenever one of them gets into trouble. Fenrir, their captain, nearly always does. The young support prodigy upon who the Chinese future has been built, FY was recognized early as the breakout star of the first VG lineup. Named by the Chinese community as the Crown Prince, VG is famously protective of him, not allowing him to be traded ever. He is basically their chosen one, and it's for a pretty good reason. While FY was a dominant force on the map during the 2014 season, he has stepped up to lead the team after ROTK's departure and has shown himself to be both bold and intelligent, perfecting the weird usage of things like counter-jungling bounty hunter, among other things. Perhaps that's why, in the Chinese scene, where shuffles are the bread and butter of competitive Dota, VG has never let him go. Or maybe it's because his girlfriend's dad owns the company that directly sponsors the team, but what do I know? Anyway, it doesn't matter how well he plays or what he does, what we can agree both in the East and the West is that kid is a looker. Ooh la la! And finally, we get to Ice, Ice, Ice. Ice 3 times. Ice Cube. Wow, I literally just figured that out. Anyway, if Hal was China's puppy, then Ice is absolutely China's Dendi. Beloved as a player and a person, Ice is one of the only Chinese players that actively takes time to communicate with the Western world, and as such is loved both in the East and West respectively. Ice began his video game career in StarCraft 2 as a highly skilled player who specialized in micro skills and out-strategizing his opponents with incredible speed and efficiency. He moved on to MOBAs, excelling at both League of Legends and Han, but chose to go with the most challenging and best MOBA of them all, Dota 2 represent. Making a small appearance at TL1 under the team's Scythe and stealing a third-place win, he found his true potential in the team's spiritual successor, Team Zenith. The current captain of Team Zenith, HYHY, was skeptical at first, and told Ice that he could have his job as the captain if he outdrafted a team in a very important game. I showed up to that game wearing boxers and did not ban a single hero for the enemy team, saying instead that banning heroes would only make their job easier as they would have less to think about. Under Ice's leadership, they won that game and won several more after, prompting HYHY to actually retire. I stayed with Zenith for some time until the sad truth was made clear. He was basically solo carrying the team on his own, and he even defeated Mushi 1v1 at TI3 in the mid, an unprecedented act by any Chinese player. This insane performance prompted Team DK to offer him a spot to fight alongside the defeated Mushi, and he joined DK to create an unstoppable dream team for TI4, and it is there that he discovered his talent as a wonderful offlaner. You see, Ice had always been a fantastic carry, but he always got bored and wanted more. When DK offered him the offlaner role, Ice found his home. He had found the challenge he had been seeking for so long, outwitting 2 different people in his lane all by himself and managing to kick the shit out of them. His signature Timber Saw is a known nightmare for any team to face. No matter how many people you put in his lane, he will just wreck your face with it. It is unstoppable. This dude is the Rain Man of Dota 2. He's always up for a challenge and always looking for more to challenge himself with. He tries to find the hardest heroes and positions in the game and becomes their master. After a stellar performance at TI4, Vici demanded that he join their squad, and he still destroys the offlane to this very day. In the end, we love Ice 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 because he's a weird-ass troll. He has an obsession with bananas and eats them at every single LAN like a crazy person. He plays with no socks on when he has to go to LAN, and when he's at home, he plays in his boxers. He commonly attempts to steal the trophies that other teams win at LANs, and he makes it his #1 priority to troll interviewers.
This is boring. We need to do something interesting. You want a blowjob?
But will Ice and the rest of VG be able to rise to the challenge of TI5 and create a new concoction for victory? Or will the experiment fade in time? For now, it seems like Vici is biding its time. Will they create a new meta again like Deathball? Or will they make a new hero into a fantastic mid and change the way that we play pubs for the next 4 months? Every time Vici comes up with a new strategy, Ice Frog himself has to patch them out. And I can't wait to see what gets patched next. Thanks for watching TIDL, and I hope to see you again for the next episode and in real life at TI5 this year. Have a wonderful night.